It is so lovely to see all of you. It's great to see your faces. I'm going to begin by ringing our chalice and invite you to take some deep breaths and just settle in this virtual but very real community. Welcome to the virtual Good Friday service at First Parish Church. Welcome to all who come with loss or grief or fear resting heavy upon them. Welcome to all who come with questions or uncertainties. To all who come with yearning for a sense of hope in the midst of these strange times we live in. However you are, whoever you are welcome here tonight in this virtual but real community we create here together. Tonight's service is adapted from the traditional Christian liturgy for Good Friday, the day on which Jesus was crucified. It is based on the 7 words, actually the 7 phrases, which according to the Gospels are the last things Jesus said before he died. Our service will unfold in this way, or at least I hope it will unfold in this way. This is a new platform for worship for us, and we pray it will go smoothly. First, I'm going to share some opening words and light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And then 7 members of the congregation will read one of the 7 last phrases of Jesus, along with a little bit of the text in which it is found in the Gospels. This will be followed by an offering of poetry and some brief words to help us reflect on that phrase, and especially on what it could mean for us right now, this year. Then we will sit together for about 30 seconds in silence, and I will ring the meditation bell again. If you want to just see the speaker, the person who is speaking, instead of all of us in our little boxes, you can hit speaker view, which should be on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Gallery view is the view that looks like the Hollywood Squares game of old. When we hold this service in the sanctuary, we have 7 lit candles on the altar, which represent those 7 last words or phrases. And I extinguish those as the service goes on. And at the end, only the chalice is lit, the light of our hope, the light of our shared faith, that love is stronger than illness or sorrow or even death. So tonight, I ask you to imagine the lights growing lower in your own living room or kitchen or wherever you are. And then we will close the service by the light of our chalice. A very special thanks to our readers tonight, and also to our spectacular tech team, John and Alan. So let us begin. Tonight we immerse ourselves in the story of the end of Jesus's life. We immerse ourselves in the fear, the hopelessness, the sense of betrayal and bewilderment of those who loved Jesus the most. His students and disciples, his mother, his best friends, some of whom watched and waited with him while he died. As we know so well this year, to be a human being in this world requires courage and strength, especially when we are asked to bear what we did not know we could, and to find strength and courage we didn't know we had. Easter is the celebration of resurrection. It is a celebration of hope and new life and renewal. But we can't fully have Easter unless we have Good Friday. We know this in our bones. New life does not arrive without pain. Birth requires labor. Morning only comes after we have waited through the night. We wish it were different, but this is simply the way of things. So I welcome you into the power of the ancient story we are telling tonight. The story of Jesus's death and the grief of his loved ones. It is a story of not knowing and vulnerability, and we can most likely relate to it in a new and very different way this year than ever before. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote thousands of years ago, "Don't turn your head. Keep looking at the bandaged place. That is where the light enters you." So I light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. The chalice is a symbol created during the Second World War for Unitarians who were working to liberate Jews and others persecuted by the Nazis. It symbolizes resilience and resistance to all the powers of destruction. I light it tonight in honor of all of those bandaged places, for that is where the light comes through in its own way and time. You can see it. So Emma Morella will give our first reading tonight.
It is written in the Gospel of Luke, 2 others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with Jesus. When they came to the place that is called Golgotha, or the skull, they crucified Jesus there with the 2 others, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "God, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And the people stood by watching, but the leaders mocked Jesus, and the soldiers also mocked him. Forgiveness is one of
We lost you, Emma. All right, I'm going to finish for Emma since we lost her. Oh, there she is.
Oh no, am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
Start with, and the people stood by watching.
Okay, let me find it. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders mocked Jesus, and the soldiers also mocked him. Forgiveness is one of the hardest human lessons. Most of us hold on to our hurts very tightly. We hold on to our anger at those who have caused us pain or done us wrong. Those sorrows are deep and real, but to withhold forgiveness has its own cost. As the theologian Henry Nouwen writes, "As long as we do not forgive those who have wounded us, we carry them with us. Or worse, we pull them like a heavy load." It is hard to put down the burden of old anger, even if we know we are the one who is most hurt by carrying it. Henry Nouwen also says, "Forgiveness is the name of love practiced among people who love poorly. And the hard truth is that all people love poorly. We need to forgive and be forgiven every day, every hour. Forgiveness is the great work of love." Forgiveness means we have stopped trying to change the past. It means we no longer use our precious energy on what we cannot control or change. Forgiveness is a letting go, not because the other person deserves it, but because we don't want to hold the pain anymore. Forgiveness is accepting what has been, so that we can make more room within ourselves for what is yet to come. And so forgiveness is an act of great hope. Let us sit together in quiet that we might reflect on forgiveness. From whom do we withhold forgiveness? For what do we still need to forgive ourselves? Is there anyone whose forgiveness we still yearn for? How might we use this time of quiet and isolation to practice forgiveness?
So we'll sit together in quiet for about 30 seconds, and then I'll ring the bell. Reverend Aaron Stockwell will give the second reading.
In the Gospel of Luke, it is written, one of the criminals who was hanging beside Jesus kept mocking him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? If you are really the Messiah, save yourself and save us." But the other, who is remembered as being named Dismas, turned to Jesus and said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." The Uses of Sorrow by Mary Oliver. In my dream, in my sleep, I dreamed this poem. Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. Jesus has been handed a box of darkness. He is sentenced to death by crucifixion in the way of political dissidents, an excruciating and painful way to die. And on the cross of darkness, of all places, he finds companionship and solidarity from a man named Dismas, who is hanging beside him, having been convicted of an unknown crime. It is a moment of connection and kindness in the midst of their suffering. We never know where or when we will be met with kindness. We never know where or when unexpected moments of light will find us. Sometimes the most surprising things turn out to be gifts. Let us sit together in quiet to reflect on our own boxes of darkness. We are living through painful and frightening days. Is there anything inside this box of darkness that you can claim as a gift, as an unexpected blessing? How have you been surprised?
Judy Nauman will give the third reading.
It is written in the Gospel of John that standing near the foot of the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister and Mary Magdalene. Some of the other disciples were there too. They were there to witness the death of their beloved. They were there to keep Jesus company, to offer the comfort of their presence, if nothing else. The Gospel says that when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, who is presumed to be John, Jesus said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son," And then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." Heavy, by Mary Oliver. That time I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer, and I did not die. Surely God has had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still, I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even among lions, "It's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it, when you cannot and would not put it down." So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind and maybe also troubled. Roses in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. Even in the midst of his terrible suffering, Jesus tells his beloveds to take care of each other. He reminds them that they belong to each other. We belong to one another, and we are called to love. As Henry David Thoreau put it, there is no remedy for love but to love more. Let us sit in quiet and reflect on grief and love. What does it mean right now to embrace grief, to accept it? Have you made the choice to love despite its risks?
And so we'll sit together in quiet for just a little while. Irv Rockwood will give the fourth reading.
It is written in the Gospel of Mark that when it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This is the moment when Jesus feels utterly forsaken, abandoned by his God, alone and hopeless. Many of us understand this feeling in a new way. We too are experiencing moments of despair and powerlessness as we read the news and fear for ourselves and our loved ones, as we grieve those who have already died or wonder who will become sick. Blessing for a Broken Vessel by Jan Richardson. Do not despair. You hold the memory of what it was to be whole. It lives deep in your bones. It abides in your heart that has been torn and mended 100 times. It persists in your lungs that know the mystery of what it means to be full, to be empty, to be full again. I am not asking you to give up your grip on the shards you grasp so close to you, but to wonder what it would be like for those jagged edges to meet each other in some new pattern that you have never imagined and you have never dared to dream. Let us sit in quiet that we might reflect on how we summon strength in the midst of such deep uncertainty and fear. What would it mean right now for you to be whole?
And we'll sit in quiet for just a little while. Tom Nalesnik will give the 5th reading.
In the Gospel of John, after Jesus points out his mother and the beloved disciple to each other, he says, "I thirst." Someone puts sour wine or vinegar on a sponge and puts the sponge on a branch and holds it to Jesus' mouth. We are told that this is to fulfill the scripture from Psalm 69. They gave me poison for food, and for my thirst, they gave me vinegar to drink. Thirst by Mary Oliver. Another morning, and I wake with thirst for the goodness I do not have. I walk out to the pond, and all the way God has given us such beautiful lessons. O Lord, I was never a quick scholar, but sulked and hunched over my books past the hour and the bell. Grant me in your mercy a little more time. Love for the earth and love for you are having such a long conversation in my heart. Who knows what will finally happen or where I will be sent? Yet already I have given a great many things away, expecting to be told to pack nothing except the prayers which with this thirst I am slowly learning. Our thirst tells us that our bodies have needs which we must honor. We live in these very bodies with their strength and pain, their vulnerability, but also their resilience and capacity to heal. We thirst for so many things right now, for safety and health for everyone, for an end to this pandemic, and for an end to the other plagues we face at all times: poverty, injustice, cruelty. Let us sit together now in quiet, that we might reflect on thirst. For what do we thirst? What is our deepest longing right now?
And let's sit in quiet for just a little while. Pamela Warden will give the 6th reading.
In the Gospel of John, after Jesus drank the wine, he said simply, "It is finished." Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Kindness by Naomi Shihab-Nye. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows, and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters or purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Hope and grief, kindness and loss, these are made of the same cloth. We cannot know light unless we know darkness. Sometimes the darkness is of our own choosing. Usually it is completely outside of our control. We just find ourselves here, stunned and wondering what comes next. Even though Jesus said, "It is finished," we are not at the end of the story. There is more to come, but it is still a mystery. Sometimes we have to let go of everything, including knowing what hope looks like. It is at these moments that we must put our faith in kindness. Let's sit in quiet now and reflect upon what we have let go of already, what we are letting go of even now. How have we already remained faithful in the face of our losses? Can we choose again to put our faith in kindness?
And so we'll sit in quiet for a little while. Melissa Wood will give the 7th reading.
The Gospel of Luke's account of the Passion ends with Jesus saying these words, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." By the hands of the world, Jesus had been betrayed and denied. By the hands of human beings, imperfect and easily misled, his body had been broken. Yet in the end, Jesus entrusts his spirit into the hands of love. In faith and trust, he surrenders to love. Sweet Darkness by David White. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own, where you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your womb tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except for the one which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. It takes trust, which is another word for faith, to invite the possibility that darkness too has sweetness. Trust leaves us vulnerable, facing our limitations, in touch with the ends of our own powers, feeling the fray of that invisible rope we may be clinging to each day. This is one of the hardest and most beautiful parts of being a human being. We can't do this alone, and at the very same time, no one can do it for us. Let us sit in quiet and consider the possibility that if we befriend darkness, it might hold us differently than if we resist it. What would it mean to stop trying to outrun suffering and to be patiently, persistently accept love? How might your next words or your next day be different if you surrendered to love?
And let's sit in quiet for just a little while. As the sun went down and the Jewish Sabbath began on Friday evening, the disciples must have been so lost, so devastated, certain of nothing except that everything had fallen apart. T.S. Eliot wrote, "The faith is in the waiting." The faith is in the waiting, in the bearing of sorrow, our own and the sorrow of others, whatever its origin. The faith is in sitting in a place of darkness, if that is where life has brought you, and waiting there until hope shows itself to you again. Jesus had told the disciples that the story was not going to end in death, that the story was going to end with life. They didn't understand this yet, and so they grieved. But they also waited and held on for morning. Reverend Laura Bogle writes, "Today, Good Friday, I remember that nothing will be the same again. And I thank God for that. To think that we will be the same is to deny the depth of the loss. To think that we will be the same is to deny the possibility that we can live into a more compassionate world out of this experience." The women in the gospel stories of Jesus's death had this wisdom, the wisdom to stay and to weep. That is what is being asked of us now too, to stop, to grieve, to remember, to reorient ourselves to this new reality, and most of all, to open ourselves to the love that is yet present here and now. There is love present, even here, even now. So we will close our service by the light of our chalice. May this light remind us of the love which surrounds us wherever we are and upholds us all. May we give one another strength, courage, and hope as we wait together for the morning to come. Go in peace, friends. Good night.